Okay, let's go over CSS classes. Classes are the most frequently used thing in CSS, and it is how you will style your HTML the majority of the time. So it's good to understand them. And I gotta tell you off the bat, be as specific as possible and give your classes good names like I taught you in the HTML lecture on classes. So let's reuse an old pin, and as we would in the HTML section, let's give this a class of blog post title. And then for our H2 cars, let's have a class of blog post subtitle. And since we have two H2s, we will put the other one here as well. And then for, no, that's good for now. Okay, so let's say that we want to style our blog post title a certain way. So in CSS, you create a class with a dot. So you have the HTML class blog post title. So what you want to do is just copy that, paste it, and then give it the styles that you want. So let's say I want, the font family to be Tahoma, and it will change that to Tahoma. Now, consequently, I could also just say make all the H1s, make H1 Tahoma. But what if I have another, H1 somewhere on my vast website that is not a blog post title? Then that H1 is going to get the styles that I would want to give the blog post title, but not all the H1s. So that's why using classes and being as specific as possible is the best practice. And not only that, when you're working with another person, using the good names in classes will help the other person you're working with know what you're styling and why you're styling it the way you are. Because if it's a blog post title, you're going to want it to stand out. So I can see, why I would give the font family a Tahoma, or a font that is, kind of bold and a little more vertical than it is horizontal, because I want it to stand out to the eye. So for the H2, our blog post subtitle, we would do the same thing if we want to style it. First a period, then we would copy the HTML class, and we make a CSS class for that HTML class. So I'm gonna specify that this in the HTML, this is an HTML class. This is a CSS class. You have to make the CSS match the HTML class in order for it to style. So if you mistype it or something's off, then of course it's not going to work. So for this one, let's just say, let's just make the color red. And see, it styles both of them. Now, I don't have a lecture on IDs, but I'll do them quickly. If you can avoid using IDs, do it. IDs are a last resort. Unless you are using like JavaScript or something like that where an ID is required because you have to select. It acts as a selector. So in that case, an ID is important. But for using CSS and styling, use classes as much as possible. So let's have an ID, and you do that by doing a hashtag. And let's just say blue, which means that anything styled or anything with the ID of blue, I want it to be styled with the color blue. So then let's give it to this list. So let's do ID equals blue. Then you can see, well, you can't really see it, but it turned blue. So let's do font weight equals bold. So you can see it a little bit better. And that's, I mean, you can use that on anything. So let's do this ID equals blue. And then, you know, you can say, let's do this ordered list class equals blog post title or blog post subtitle. I mean, you don't want to do this. This is very ugly and disorganized. But I'm just showing you how you can style things with CSS. But even if you wanted this ordered list to have a color of red, what you would want to do is give it its own class. So let's just make another, well, okay, you want to be as specific as possible, but I'm trying to just make this an easy example. So, like, don't ever give a class of red or blue to anything. It's just, it'll be way too confusing when you're trying to go back and do it. I'm just giving a practical example, so don't ever do that. Be specific as possible like this one, but don't ever make a class named red or something like that. Just don't do it. All right, so in this video you learned how to make a CSS class and an ID and how to style with it. And in the next video we're going to talk about the popular CSS div.